Boom. What up, fam? Anthony Dream Johnson here today, co-founder of the Redman Group, founder of 21 Studios, the 21 Convention, the 22 Convention, and 21 University. Here with a special episode 131 of the Redman Group, technically live right here in studio at the Manchester White House Global Command Center at 21 Studios. I got with me Jay Vincent. He's an alumni speaker of the 21 Convention and 22 Convention. He's been on the Redman Group a couple times before, but for the first time ever, I got him right here at 21 Studios Global Command in Orlando, Florida. So, Jay, welcome back to the show, man.
Good to see you, bud.
Yeah. So first things first, this is Florida. You're from New York.
Right.
What are you doing here in Florida? How'd that happen?
I moved to Florida.
Yeah.
New York, when it comes to the economy, politics, and the weather, there's no place to live. So I moved down here about 2.5 weeks ago, Tampa.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. What exactly inspired the move? I mean, I know the weather's nice, obviously, Sunshine State. Was it COVID stuff?
It was a lot of COVID stuff. I mean, I'm the type of person who I always need to be growing. I always need to be, I need progress. And with the state, with the uncertainty in the state and shutting things down and everyone's afraid to work out, especially with what I do, it was going to take me a while to start growing again. And I had it. So I'm like, if I want growth, I'm going to come to, the free state of Florida and bring my business here and just capitalize on the opportunity down here. Plus, a lot of people from New York are moving down here anyway. The economy is going to boom even more.
Yep.
It was a smart move, and a lot of my family lives here now, and the weather is a huge plus. I hate the snow.
Yeah, damn. Yeah. In Florida, we kind of like the snow, but we never get it. So it's kind of like greener side of the fence.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You guys don't know how lucky you are.
Yeah, I've seen snow once in Orlando in college.
Really?
Yeah, it melted when it hit the ground. But it was about,
let's
see, January 2010, yeah.
I saw this morning, it was about 55 degrees out when I woke up. There were people wearing with their hats. I'm like,
yeah.
You guys don't know cold.
This is cold for us.
You don't know cold.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned the free state of Florida. It's funny. I had a buddy of mine drive down the other day from the D.C. area. And when he crossed the border into Florida, I was like, welcome to America. Because I'm sure the difference, like you were saying, is just massive, just politically right now, just being able to go out.
It's so different. It's like a different world.
Yeah.
Like it's, and especially when I got into my new apartment and I felt this weight lifted off my shoulders. Like,
wow.
The mood shift, not only from the weather, but the mood shift and just being able to see the normalcy was huge. And it's just, unfortunately for New York, it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah.
So if you're smart and you got a set of nuts, get out of there.
Yeah. Pick up and go, man.
Yeah.
Go to where the freedom's at.
Exactly.
Now, we had a guy actually just ask, what type of service do you offer? So just to kind of finish up the introduction, you're a high intensity trainer. You're an entrepreneur as well and a business owner.
Right.
But you do a specific type of personal training, and that's the vast majority of what you do, right?
That's right. Yeah.
How did you get started with that?
Well, it was about 2013 or 14. I was working your typical cube farm job, an insurance company. It was, we were supposed to get out of college, get a job with benefits, a secure job. 10 months go by, and I thought to myself, like, this is it. Like, I'm going to end up like this 6-year-old loser. It's going to take me 30 years to make 6 figures doing what I hate. So it occurred to me that I should probably pursue something that I'm good at and I enjoy, which is exercise. So I started doing some training kind of like on the weekends. And I found, actually, go back a little further, I was trying to become a professional fitness model. I was going to tie training into that too. And I got a hold of this agency called Silver Model Management down in New York City. They're like, yeah, you look great. You got everything. We just need you to be bigger. At this point, I'm 23, 24 years old. And I've been working out since I was 16. I was about 190 pounds at the time. This was as big as I can get. And I'm like, this guy just said, I need to get bigger. How the hell am I going to do that?
210, something like that?
I'm like 207, 208. Yeah. And ever since I discovered these principles, that's what happened. So, I watched 21 Convention, presentation by Doug McGuff explaining the actual physiology behind exercise.
Author of this book, guys.
This book,
Body by Science.
And after just like scouring the threads and through bodybuilding.com and YouTube, I was like, nothing really clicked to me. And I listened to this speech by him I was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
that's it. It makes perfect sense. So I bought the book, read the book cover to cover, one sitting. Like, it's not only is this book informative, it's entertaining because your light bulbs are going off. You're like, holy shit, that
He's a
makes
really
sense.
good author.
Yeah,
I think he underestimates himself.
Him and John Little, they break things down for the layman quite well, but enough physiology and science in there to really get your attention and teach you something.
Yeah.
So I read that book and I started implementing these principles. I was working out.
Now, did this book conflict with what you already knew? Challenging.
Yeah. So I was working out about 6 days a week, spending about an hour a day in the gym. Typical back, bi, chest, tri, maybe legs. Fitness guy when you're like 20, 22, train your legs. No one cares.
Chicken legs, they call it. Right? Chicken legs.
So, and I noticed too, when I was going to work, I was so tired. I thought I had sleep apnea. I went to the doctor, got tested, didn't have sleep apnea. And this book described overtraining. And I was like, whoa, that's me. I was working out 6 hours a week, maybe 7. I was overtrained. Wasn't seeing any progress. Started to implement these principles outlined in this book, which is you want to train with more intensity of effort, less volume, less frequency. So I took that 6 day a week workout down to 3. I was doing a chest tris, back bis, and a legs. I did that for a while, and within about 4 months, I gained about 10, 15 pounds. Boom, like that.
So hang on. Let's pause here. You cut your volume in terms of days of the week in half. And you gained 15 pounds of muscle.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Volume is generally misdefined in the exercise community. But what volume actually is muscular effort over time or time under load. Okay. It's not the amount of exercises, the sets and reps,
which maybe is more frequency is a better word.
Right. So I cut the frequency down and the volume down. So instead of doing 4 exercises for chest, incline, decline, flat, cable fly, I was just doing 1. So I cut the volume down, the amount of exercises in bodybuilding terms. I cut that down, and what it did was, rather than focusing on the amount of exercises and volume and frequency, I focused on intensity. And when you train your muscles harder, so intensity of effort is how hard you push your body and how hard you work your muscles in a given exercise. When you start to push that harder, the volume and frequency have to come down naturally because you simply cannot tolerate that level of intensity for very long. Yeah. Brought the intensity up, brought the volume down, focused on recovery and allowing my body to actually produce the adaptation while resting. Then the muscle started to grow.
And that is, let's pause here again, though. That's like the opposite of most guys think. In my understanding.
Because what most people think is that you are producing the adaptation or growing your muscles as you are training. People think that you're burning fat as you are doing cardio. The adaptations are not taking place as you're doing it. It is merely a stimulus to tell your body to do it. So the stimulus, aggressive, deep muscular fatigue. You can do this a gazillion different ways.
And it's basically damaging, right?
You're creating systemic inflammation, local inflammation. You're literally creating microtrauma within the sarcomeres of your muscle fibers. Yep. And your body needs time to repair this. So the stimulus is the weakening and the damage. The adaptation is the repair.
You're actually ripping apart the fibers, right? Especially during negatives.
Yeah. I mean, the actin myosin filaments, the cross bridges, you're creating kind of a damage in between the cross bridging in the sarcomere of the actin myosin. And that's part of it. It's not as much. Damage isn't as important as we once thought. And there's some recent research that shows that, but it is a factor of it.
But this is like a healthy damage too, though. We're not saying like rip your fucking muscles apart.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, the best analogy, Mike Menser did this, gave this analogy in the past, and Drew Bay has said it quite a few times, is it's like a suntan. So when you're in the sun, the ultraviolet light irritates or lightly damages your skin. The light itself, the UV light, doesn't actually darken your skin. What it does is the damage causes an upregulation in melanin. The melanin darkens your skin as a protective mechanism to deflect more UV light. It's the same thing when you're training. That deep aggressive muscular fatigue stimulates the adaptation of producing stronger muscles in all the supporting systems that support the muscle. So your cardiovascular system, connective tissue, bones, metabolism, as a protective mechanism against further muscular fatigue. So that's the damage we're talking about. But if you don't allow time for your body to make or produce the adaptation, you're just spinning your wheels. Just like if you went in a tanning booth for as long as you could tolerate, just to the point where you're about to burn your gut out. You could feel it. And then you waited 5 minutes and went back in. Like you didn't allow the tan to produce yet. You have to wait a day or two, and then you repeat the process.
You're going to end up with problems too if you keep doing that.
Right. So
skin cancer and all kinds of stupid
because
shit.
there are adverse effects to too much of the stimulation, because the exercise itself is a negative thing. It is a exhausting, damaging thing on your body. And if you do too much of it, you're going to head in the other direction, the analogical equivalent of sunburn. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Well, some people are doing that. A lot of people just aren't training hard enough. You walk into a Planet Fitness, you see people, I always say they battle for the closest parking spot to go in and walk on a treadmill. Okay, that's insane to me. And the reason is, they're just punching their ticket.
It doesn't end there either. It's always lightweight. It's always minimal. It's always minimal. They think they're doing the best, but it's always a minimal effort, the lowest weight, the highest reps usually. Because
they don't understand what the stimulus is, which is deep, aggressive muscular fatigue. They think that by moving this pink weight up and down, I'm shaping and sculpting my muscle. No.
There's a lot of stupid shit people believe.
Yeah.
And you talked about this at 21 Convention, right? You went through myths.
Right. Almost 90, I would say 90 to 99% of the fitness industry is in most cases wrong, and in many cases completely backwards.
Aggressively stupid.
Yeah. Like they say you want to go to the gym 2 times a day. Backwards. Maybe once a day. You want to work out more. The better in shape you get, the more you want to work out. Backwards. You want to work out less because you're developing, more damage, more fatigue. Everything is either wrong or backwards. And I base my principles off, and I made a good living and a good business and company by implementing these principles. After all of my clients, that people try everything in exercise, and it'll fail. But once they come to me, I explain the principles to them. I apply them properly. Everybody gets the results they're looking for because they work. They're based on physiology and research.
Yeah. Let's talk about some more of them. Well, let's talk about your experience. So at the 21 Convention and 22 Convention for the women, you talk about the myths of fitness and strength training, exercise. So first, let's talk about, I want to hear your opinion and your experience at 21 Summit at the event. And then kind of let's overview, then dig into some of the myths, muscle confusion, a lot of this bullshit. Like
it's almost all myths.
Yeah, we're kind of like pepper spraying these as we go through them, but I think there's a few we need to really kind of dig into.
Yeah.
So your experience at 21 Summit, that was in Orlando here, about 30 minutes away, just a few months ago. It feels like forever ago. But how was that?
Yeah, it was great because I drove by the venue on the way here.
Nice.
I was like, oh shit, because I recognized that there's a particular big rock volcano thing, and I recognize that.
Volcano Bay.
Yeah. So
the water park.
I mean, the convention was awesome. I feel really grateful to have taken part in that because you get to be around like-minded people. The speakers are like-minded, and you learn just so much from talking to these people. And the network too.
Yeah.
A couple of people, I didn't really know who they were. And then I started following them afterwards. And their content literally has improved my personal life.
The speakers, you mean?
Yeah, because a lot of every speaker invited to this event was wise beyond your imagination. Like the things they knew, even so, I listened to some of them, listen to their YouTube channels. Like, how does he know this shit? Like, that's so fucking wise. I never would have learned that if it weren't for this channel or this speaker. The information provided is invaluable. It's insane. So that's why I just felt, honored. It was an absolute privilege to be a part of this and present information, hopefully to the caliber of these other men. It was a life-changing experience. I freaking loved it.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Now, how was it, you started your business by watching 21 Convention speeches. Was that kind of surreal to then get behind the camera and now you're contributing to
the platform? That just gave me goosebumps. Yeah, I just thought of it. I was like, on the way down, I was like, 6 years ago, 6 years ago, I was watching this video talking about this topic. Yep. I'm flying down here to talk about this topic where I learned about this topic. It's like, man, I mean, not to be egotistical, but I did pretty fucking well. Like I made myself into one of the experts. When your idols become your colleagues.
Yeah.
Like now I can talk to Doug, I can talk to Drew, I can talk to all these people who I was learning from once. Now they're my colleagues. And that alone is a level of fulfillment that is just undescribable. It's awesome.
I see it too as part of not only the Manosphere and 21 Convention, but even the HIT community.
Mm-hmm.
The HIT community is, founded by Arthur Jones, is kind of his founding father. And a lot of the guys that were part of it are now getting older. I mean, Drew Bay is still pretty young, but even McGuff is older. Ken Hutchins is like a lot older.
Mm-hmm.
Ellington Darden, Jim Flanagan, a lot of who live in Florida. But eventually they're not going to be around. It's like Arthur. Arthur died in 2007, right after we held our first event, actually. But you're so young like me that I see as like a passing of the torch.
Right.
You're carrying the information forward in a way that's going to last for decades after Ken's gone and Ellington Darden and Jim Flanagan, sadly. So that's why that was one of my favorite things of seeing you up there is I know that you're going to be around for a long time. You know what you're talking about. You know the sources this came from and you understand how to convey it. On top of that, you have a great physique, which is really good for conveying it for better or worse. People respond to that Instagram, right? Fitness models and all this stuff.
Yep. Yeah. As much as I hate using the whole fitness model as a leverage or to get more attention for, what I'm trying to teach, it helps. It definitely helps. It works. And I think that's why I kind of gained the amount of popularity I have is because, I mean, there were bodybuilders doing this in the past.
Yeah.
But now
Mike Mentzer, Ray Mentzer.
Right.
Like
now there aren't though. Yeah. And that's the thing. So you have Doug McGough, Drew Bay, Ken Hutchins, Jim Flanagan, brilliant human beings. But people are stupid. So when they look at them, they think, oh, let's
just pause and reflect on this. People are stupid.
Most people are just really dumb. So they look at these people and they have no ability to think critically. Yeah. They will completely disregard their information just because they don't look the part. Because people don't realize, and we're probably going to go into another topic here, people don't realize how important genetics are for your individual response to exercise. Yeah. It's as important as your individual response to sunlight. You can't change how well you tan from the sun. And you also can't change how well you respond to exercise. There are genetic predispositions. Yeah. And the people who are flooding Instagram and flooding YouTube not only have great genetic predispositions, they're also using a ridiculous amount of drugs. And then they're conveying bullshit. Yeah. And it's created a mess.
Yeah, there's I think McGuff addresses it right off the bat, and which tells you, I think, in a way, its importance. I don't think it's as chronological. It's like this is number one in Body by Science. He talks about this genetics and how people, basically the cognitive bias people have towards anybody who's like physically like a freak, But you wouldn't do this and I guess with muscle though, it's the most confusing to people. It's the most alluring, like the most seductive, because like in the book he talks about, he probably got it from Ken Hutchins. You don't go to a basketball game and see a bunch of guys who are 6'5", and you're like, oh man, they're running up and down the court. I want to get tall. What if I do what they do?
Right.
Like that just sounds fucking stupid. But when it comes to exercise, which is another genetic physical manifestation of phenotypic expression, people don't think that way. They just are like, oh, I want 6-pack abs. Like, what does that guy do? I'm going to mimic him.
And this is because the fitness industry and really smart but shady businessmen took advantage of people's lack of understanding for genetic predispositions for exercise. And then you had the commercials and the infomercials saying, you can look like this too if you took this or you did this. Sculpt and tone your abs as if you can literally sculpt, shape, and tone your own body. It's just up to you.
Let's address that though. So that's a big myth today that a lot of people still believe: spot reduction. Yeah. So if they're fat and for whatever reason, like coming up the mic, but if they're fat on their love handles or girl triceps, girls bitch about the triceps and stuff. Is it possible to spot reduce fat without surgery?
No, it's not. So the thing is, your body hypertrophies and atrophies as a whole, kind of like a balloon. Like if you can't take a balloon and shrink one side of it. That's what people are trying to do with their body. If you want to reduce the amount of fat tissue on your body, you have to reduce the overall volume of fat tissue on your body, kind of like just shrinking an entire balloon. There are genetic variations of where people hold fat. Some women, and I've had clients like this, I had a woman who was down to about 135 pounds. She was in okay shape, not great shape, but her arms were still thick, and she just, on the back of her triceps, she wanted to do more tricep work. Unfortunately, she just has a higher accumulation of fat cells around her triceps. A lot of women have a lot of accumulation of fat cells around their stomachs. Some have none around their stomach, a lot around their ass and hips.
Yep.
The distribution of fat cells is not up to you.
Where do we find these big
unfortunately, it's
booty women?
uneven.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, you can see some. They're just, a lot of, I guess we'll call them busty Latino women, right?
Yeah.
Flat stomach, small hips, big ass and thighs.
Yep.
It's genetic. So unfortunately, if you have some love handles, or if you have, I guess, flabby arms, you can't just by working that particular muscle change the appearance of that limb or that area of your body. You have to reduce fat overall
In terms of fat
build
reduction.
muscle. In terms of fat reduction,
Skeletal muscle, you have a little bit of ability to influence, right?
yeah,
Like
right.
If you neglect your legs, you get chicken legs, for
Right.
example.
But not as much as people think. So like Arthur Jones described this as indirect effect. Okay. So a lot of times if I have men,
hang on, pause real quick. We what's going on with this? We lost the video for a second. Hang on, guys. Yeah, that has happened, right? Yeah, hang on. I think I can fix it. Hang on, guys. Technical difficulty.
YouTube's like, uh-oh. Yeah. Truth's coming out.
Possible, but probably just this. Yeah, it could be that, but I don't think it's let's see. Oh, now we're back in multicolor. So that's working again, but one second, guys. They're gonna still hear us on audio as we fix this. Just hang tight, guys. Can you flip your camera off, friend? Yeah. Do the unplug of the thing and plug it back in. You can turn yours on first. Yeah. Still multicolored. Fuck. Plug mine in. Plug in. Then plug in. And turn on. Still funny looking.
Like the old Nintendo.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to that, unfortunately. Fuck. Try this. Try it now. Yeah, it's working, but it's all that funny color. We could just film it like this, but fuck, that color's... You see it? Yeah, I know. It's brutal. Hang on, guys. Try one more time. The old Nintendo.
Yeah.
You got it on?
If that works, I'm gonna shit.
Hey, we're back. All right.
See?
Yeah.
A little bit of dust.
That actually worked. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Hey, it worked for Nintendo for
Could
years,
be coincidence.
right?
Could be coincidence.
Tend to have that effect on the universe.
We'll keep it going. Keep an eye on it. Let me know if it pauses. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
So where were we?
What are we talking
Spot
about?
reduction, I think, is where we're at.
Right. Training individual muscle groups. Arthur Jones described this as indirect effect because the stimulus, although there is a local stimulus for the particular muscle group, the overall stimulus is really an increase in protein synthesis fueled by stimulating what's called the mTOR pathway. And if you stimulate a muscle group, all the other muscle groups in your body are also going to be stimulated to a lesser effect. Kind of like, I think Arthur Jones described it as like throwing a rock the ripple effect, throwing the rock into the water. Like, you're going to have a big splash and it's going to ripple out. It's
I
kinda
know
like,
even in rehabilitative training for orthopedic injuries and things like that, they'll even train like one leg or whatever to try to basically induce hypertrophy in the other leg.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what I think you're saying here.
Yeah, it will, because the upregulation in myokines and cytokines and all those things, that happens as a whole. And so you can indirectly train some muscle groups and they can have an effect on other muscle groups. So, if there are people who want like a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I want to get bigger arms. It's like, well, your arms aren't going to grow disproportionately to your chest or back or shoulders. You need to grow all of your upper body tissue as a whole in order for your arms to get big. Your body's pretty reluctant to a fair amount of disproportional growth. So you got a lot of people in the gym hammering their arms to death, thinking that they're going to grow disproportionately into the size that they want. And it just simply doesn't work like that. If you want bigger arms or a bigger particular muscle group, yes, work that muscle group harder, not more, but harder, but don't neglect other muscle groups too.
So let's talk this. This got me thinking about this. What is your opinion on compound exercises like a chest press versus more isolation movements, as we call them, which would be like a tricep press, bicep curls, pec fly, things like that? Well, compound movements good?
Compound movements are going to give you the most bang for your buck. You're going to work a lot of different muscle at one time. So for people who don't want to spend a ton of time in the gym, a compound movement is simply more efficient. Also, it's going to have a greater effect systemically. So it's going to produce that greater systemic effect, which is also a stimulus for growing muscles. So, I mean, if you wanted to, the research shows that these simple movements, because you can't really isolate a muscle. You can emphasize relative involvement of a muscle, but you cannot emphasize it. So for instance, doing an elbow flexion or a biceps curl is going to emphasize the use of your biceps, but you've also got your front delt, medial delt, brachialis. You've also got all that involved too.
Right?
Yeah,
to basically stabilize or position the arm.
Right. Oh, stabilizers. We'll get to that too.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, but you can emphasize the relative involvement of a muscle group, but the research shows that adding in these simple movements like an elbow flexion, elbow extension movement to the compound movements, if the compound movements are done to failure, don't provide any additional growth, or simply maybe a teeny percentage isn't worth most people's time unless you're a professional bodybuilder. So I would consider it not even worth it. I encourage people to do these simple movements because, like, as men, we like doing curls. We like the pump, we like doing triceps, we like doing curls. So if you like them, do them. It's really not going to do any harm. But if you're doing compound movements to failure and adding in all these other simple movements, thinking it's going to bring up your biceps or bring up your triceps more because they're lagging, research shows it's not going to have much of an effect. You're likely just overtraining or not training hard enough.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes you see guys making, not just on the internet, bitching about, you have like haters and stuff on your account and stuff, but in real life, when you've been to the gym, I mean, now you're running a personal training studio, it's a little different. But guys actually going into the gym, what are some of the biggest things they're doing wrong? Throwing weights around. I mean, there's a lot to go into, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, since I'm living down in Tampa now, I became a member of a gym close by to me. It makes me want to pull my fucking hair out. Seeing the things. The most recent thing I saw, which annoyed me so bad, and it's not their fault, they just don't know, but I believe it was a couple of USF basketball players, and they were practicing their moves
with weights
on a Bosu ball. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, and another guy was holding this, it looked like a log filled with water. So the water shakes and you have to work to keep it stable. Holding this thing on a Bosu ball and just trying to stay stable.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, bro, how the hell is that going to transfer to a basketball court? It's not. So you've got this push for functional training to the point where they're doing things that are laughably ridiculous. You've got a guy, he's on a Bosu ball practicing his moves. One thing a lot of people do not understand is the concept of skill transfer. In order to improve a skill, you have to practice that skill in the specific environment which you will be using that skill.
Shit, we froze again.
It's froze?
Yeah, fuck.
It's on a roll too.
Yeah, I know. Hang on a second. Hang on, guys. My head is like frozen too with it. It's funny. I don't know if it's this thing or my computer that keeps freezing it up. Damn it.
I think it's Athlean X coming in and shutting us down.
I might have to switch to that webcam at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it won't freeze. Let's see what this does. Yeah, it's back, but multicolored. Son of a bitch. Let's switch to that webcam. Charlie, can you give me that? Bring that, and Ryan can set that webcam up because I think it's going to keep freezing like every 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Hey guys, we're switching cameras so it doesn't freeze anymore. It's frustrating to use this camera, but it'll work at least. Yeah. All right. Just set up the positioning of it a little bit. So angle it, yeah, down a little bit, just top of it. But you can use the webcam itself. It'd be easier way to do it. A little more down. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. It's not as pretty, but it'll work. Yeah, we're good to go.
We'll get the point across.
Yeah, point will come across. Sorry for the technical difficulty, guys. We will not have any more freezing as we talk about these issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where you're at.
So yeah, I was talking about the concept of skill transfer. One of the biggest mistake athletes are making, in particular, is trying to combine training and their sport-specific skills. In this case, I forgot what it's called. It's been a while since I played basketball, but he was getting into a kind of a defensive move, holding the ball while on a Bosu ball. So he was practicing a basketball-specific move on an unstable surface, thinking that it's going to improve his ability to perform the skill on a stable surface. That's dumb.
Well, hang on. Let's pause there on this too, though. I agree it's dumb, but what you're referring to as well with the skill or the basically this cross compatibility of skills and working out. This is like gospel with athletes today.
Yeah,
like it's a few coaches here and there will oppose it, but mostly it's like you can't even challenge it. And I agree with you. Like it's just stupid.
I've got examples. I mean, so first of all, there's positive skill transfer, no skill transfer at all, and negative skill transfer. A positive skill transfer is something you practice that is going to transfer obviously positively and improve your skill in the sport. Negative skill transfer is going to negatively affect that particular skill. This guy practicing the skill on an unstable surface is going to have a negative transfer. It's a couple examples I use is if anyone's ever tried driving with their shoe off, okay, it's the same exact thing. The only difference is the removal of a little bit of padding, and you notice you're worse at driving. That is the exact same skill with a severely minor tweak in the environment, and you're worse. Another is, you probably use this computer often. You're used to that keyboard. Go type on one of those, thicker desktop keyboards or an Apple keyboard. You're going to be worse at typing because you adapted specifically to that keyboard. So if these minor changes in the environment are causing a negative transfer or not transferring, how is bouncing on a Bosu ball, holding a basketball, going to transfer to a basketball court? Because that's a major. It's
our buddy Bill De Simone. He wrote these bottom two books. You guys can't see them in the. They don't have like that kind of spine, but he calls this like just wishful thinking or magical thinking.
You know what it is? It's
common too.
It's just to look cool. That's pretty much what it is. The fitness industry is thriving off of just being different now. Yeah. So people can just get on camera and just do some, I call it a display of athletic ability. It is not a way to improve all the functional or all the trainable factors of functional ability. It's a display of either strength or coordination or whatever, fraudulently being promoted as a way to improve the trainable factors of functional ability. And it's just wrong and it's stupid. So the hugest mistake athletes are making in the gym is doing that, trying to combine your skill. It's no different than trying to shoot a weighted basketball. Like we would agree that there's a very bad way to practice shooting a basketball, right? Another thing they're doing is the explosive movement and moving too quickly during exercise.
Oh, but hang on. Before we get into explosive training, which is a whole thing in itself, yeah, let's just clarify here. What you're proposing is describe to me what you're proposing. But as I understand it, you're basically saying people need to split, athletes or whatever. They need to split in half their exercise training from their sports specific training,
right?
Rather than constantly forever combine this shit,
right?
Which sounds pretty reasonable. But it's like no one wants to do that. They're just like, no, like this
because
stubborn attitude.
Strength and conditioning is a general trainable factor of functional ability, meaning strength transfers to anything you do. But the skill transfers specifically. So trying to improve your strength by, shooting a weighted basketball or something like that, since that's going to have a negative effect, it's more advantageous to focus on just strengthening all of your muscles overall, because that way your body is going to be able to perform whatever skill that you're practicing better with more explosivity, more power. So we need to separate them. You need to have your strength and conditioning. You need to have your skill practice. There's just this erroneous belief that combining the two is going to have a more profound effect on your ability to perform the skill than separating them. And it's just, I mean, the science behind motor learning and skill transfer has been around for decades. It's just, unfortunately, it sounds crazy, but none of these coaches understand the basics.
And they don't want to hear it.
No, they don't want to hear it, because what they learned was, they were an assistant at one place and their team did well. So say like Alabama's assistant strength and conditioning coach. Alabama wins every championship ever. He gets a job for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Since Alabama won, he must be a great strength and conditioning coach. No, they're a team full of freaks. That's why they win. He had nothing to do with it, but he takes some of that credibility and he passes on his bullshit to an NFL team, and then another NFL team does well, and then they copy each other's bullshit, and then it spreads like crazy.
Now, you mentioned motor learning on this issue just now. So one of the ways I think Doug described that issue, and maybe you can add to this in Body by Science, basically like when someone starts running, if they don't run at all, they're just stationary, couch potato, whatever, some fat kid, right? Some fat 18-year-old just got out of high school, doesn't run, he's fat, and he starts running. Maybe he runs like a slow-ass 15-minute mile. He runs, every week or every day for a month, and then he runs a 10-minute mile or 11-minute mile. They're like, people think, oh, he must have gotten, his legs got stronger, this or that, or whatever the case was. But in a lot of cases, it's just motor learning, right? It's your body's ability to basically perfect the repetition, just putting one foot in front of the other. So is this kind of what you're referring to?
That's a skill improvement.
It's a skill improvement, yeah.
So
the muscles have changed almost not at all.
A skill improvement is your body finding the most efficient muscle recruitment pattern to perform what you're asking it to do consistently. In terms of running, over time, your body's going to learn and improve its ability to run, so that way it uses less energy, uses less resources. It's a preservation of resources type thing. So people kind of they base how in shape you are on how long you can run, which is insane, because the more often you run, the more efficient your body gets at it, the easier it becomes. And this is this misconception that you've become in shape. No, you've simply improved the skill associated with running, and allowed enough time to adapt in terms of creating an efficient muscle recruitment pattern for running, because your body just thinks it's like, okay, well, we have to run a lot and we can't use too much energy or we're going to die, because the body evolved in a food scarce, energy scarce environment. So the body is looking for efficient pathways to do everything. A good example.
Well, what that means, so if I can reiterate this, what that means then for people watching is like the body, running for the body is like a game of basically recruiting muscles in the most efficient way possible to move. Right. So it's not your heart and lungs magically getting, the fat kid is still fat, the couch potato a month later, right? Maybe he lost 2
See a lot of fat runners, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. But they get better at running. It's not, but their heart and lungs are not the main issue, right?
Right.
They're just better at running.
The thing is the heart and lungs also have not adapted. So in the beginning, you're going to be using a lot more resources and a lot more muscle tissue inefficiently, which is going to force the cardiovascular system, the hearts, lungs, blood vessels, to work harder to supply the muscle with the resources it needs. Over time, when the muscle recruitment pattern improves and the muscles are using less energy, less resources, the cardiovascular system doesn't have to work as hard to supply them. That's where people think that they worked on their cardio. You didn't work on your cardio. You improved your skill, so your body doesn't use as much energy to do that skill, in this case, running. So your heart and lungs don't have to work as hard to supply them. Sure, there have been improvements in your cardiovascular system's efficiency and cardiovascular efficiency.
But you're saying they're minor, not major.
Very minor, mostly has to do with skill. Because take that runner who, take the marathon runner, throw him on a bike. Well, you're in good shape. Do this professional bike course. Not going to be able to do it because that skill is not going to transfer to the bike. So, he thinks he's in shape, but he's only in shape for running. But that's not going to transfer to cycling
or swimming or anything else.
It's going to transfer to running, and that's it. So what you want to do is strength and conditioning.
And this is very different from conventional wisdom, though. The conventional wisdom is that a marathon runner will be able to do all these things, but in reality, they can't because it's the muscles that are being recruited differently. Yeah,
right.
It's different.
I mean, we can't even call it wisdom; we have to call it fantasy. It's just not how it works. Strength and conditioning is generate a deep level of muscle fatigue in all of the working muscle tissue in your body. And then your cardiovascular system will improve to accommodate that, the stronger muscle tissue, and then practice your skill. And that improvement, that strength and conditioning improvement is going to transfer to other skills, but you still have to transfer the skill or practice the skill. I have a lot of clients who are like, I've been working out for 6 months, but I go on a jog and I'm still tired. How often you jog? Oh, this is my first time. Okay. Well, jog 5-6 times and you will adapt to jogging quicker because you have been strengthening and conditioning your muscles, both systemically and locally. You're going to adapt to performing those skills more efficiently quicker if you're stronger.
Now, before we move off of cardio and the heart, lungs, and all this stuff, cardio is this like magical thing that people are infinitely defensive on.
There's no such thing as cardio.
I'm there with you. Yeah. And Doug is, I think, a pioneer in combating that. So we could get into the history of that maybe, but first, talk to me just on a basic level, because obviously the heart and lungs are important organs, and physically they're extremely foundational to even doing anything physical, whether it's competitive powerlifting, riding a bicycle, whatever you're doing, a sport. The heart and lungs are critical to these things. How does strength training affect the heart and lungs? I mean, does strength training improve the heart and lungs in a meaningful way? So
the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're generating a level of muscle fatigue that your body's not used to. It's going to stimulate the muscle to adapt. The muscle is going to adapt in strength, size, also metabolic efficiency. So when the metabolic efficiency of the muscle improves, that allows it to take in the resources it needs, or the substrate or oxygen, whatever, through aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and get rid of the waste more efficiently. And that comes down to deeply fatiguing the muscle tissue. Now, when your muscle gets better at doing this, taking in the resources, getting rid of the waste, the heart and lungs don't have to work as hard to supply that tissue. So that is what's happening generally. But there are improvements, not so much in the lungs, but in the heart. So when you're strength training, you're improving what's called stroke volume. So when you're strength training, you're sucking more blood in and pushing more blood out. Over time, you're going to improve coronary blood flow, and your heart's going to improve its ability to take more blood in and push more blood out. And that's what's, I guess we can call making the heart stronger. It's improving the heart's stroke volume.
And the heart is a muscle.
The heart is a muscle.
It's specialized muscle, or cardiac
muscle.
I
mean, that's the thing. It's like, can you strengthen the heart? No, you can make the heart more efficiency. Yeah, I mean, some of the tissues and the linings of the heart do become like stronger, sure, but that's not what we're after. We're after improving the stroke volume of the heart.
Obviously, steroids can ruin your heart too. The muscles can get huge and all that shit.
Growth hormone. Yeah, steroids. I don't know if steroids do that, but I know growth hormone does.
Okay.
Growth hormone is a hormone that tells all the tissues to grow. Steroids only work on skeletal muscle. For the most part, I believe. I'm not really sure. But
I'm not sure either, to be honest, but I did, when I was young, about 6-7 years old, my dad was using steroids and all that shit heavy. and he was jacked as shit. I mean, he was massive from it. You know, benching 450 pounds, repping it and shit, you know, on a barbell bench. But then he had a heart attack at like, you know, 42, 43 years old from it, almost died.
Really?
And his heart was massive.
How much did he weigh?
His weight, maybe like, he was 6'1", maybe 225,
Okay,
230, something like that. Yeah.
But what was his diet
Maybe
like?
240.
Was he like garbage can, eat everything?
No, he was eating just huge amounts of like boiled chicken, tuna, potato, rice. So this is like in the early mid 90s.
Okay.
So what was popular in bodybuilding back then?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I always kind of assumed the reason that people have these cardiovascular issues from steroids is because generally it's the bodybuilders, right? So the bodybuilders are taking the huge amounts of, they don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And then combining it with ridiculous amounts of caloric intake.
Yeah.
That caloric intake is going to create systemic inflammation. It's going to create inflammation in your blood vessels, which can lead to cardiovascular disease. That's what I thought.
Whatever the enlarged heart syndrome is, that's what it
was.
Ooh,
okay.
Yeah, it was massive.
So maybe he was taking growth hormone?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
yeah.
All kinds of random shit.
That's what the pro athletes are taking now. It's growth hormone because it's generally undetectable and its effectiveness is ridiculous. Yeah. So, but the downside is your heart might explode.
That's how these massive bodybuilders today, these freaks, right, get that way too. It's not just steroids; it's all kinds of growth
hormone. Insulin, steroids, growth hormone, and a huge amount of caloric surplus.
Yeah,
and it's unhealthy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the physique you have, I don't know if it comes across on camera, but like, you know, seeing you next to Elliot Hulse, take a picture with him and stuff at the convention, that was kind of an eye opener. Yeah. Like this guy, Elliot's a big dude.
Yeah. I remember when I first saw him, I was like, shit, he's a lot bigger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And then like, that's the thing. You have a hard time kind of gauging other physiques against yours from your perspective, but then you take a picture and then I was like, oh, all right. Yeah. So yeah, it was nice to see for sure.
Now, there's an endless list of bullshit, you know, conventional fantasies or conventional wisdom, you know, we could keep digging into, and we should. But also I want to talk about the guys who are maybe not into strength training yet. Maybe the guys who get discouraged because they're quote unquote ectomorph or whatever. They're just skinny, maybe. Or they just don't get good results, period. Maybe they're fat and they work out, doesn't do anything.
Right.
So for the guys who've been discouraged in the past, why should they give this kind of training a chance? The high intensity training that you advocate for, which is brief, intense, and frequent and safe, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of people are under the assumption that exercise is a lifestyle. You know, these are the assholes that just have no identity, and they want to be like, you think you can do this? This is a lifestyle. I'm better than you.
Gym bros.
Yeah. I'm better than you because I spend 6 hours a morning prepping meals and doing bullshit that wastes time. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't take that much time. They just make it take that much time so they can pat themselves on the back and associate some kind of valor with wasting a tremendous amount of time with what they think.
And you
fitness.
Treat exercise very differently. You treat it more like brushing your teeth or something like that.
Right. Exercise is something you do for your health. So even if your goal is not to get huge, or first of all, if you're a man, there's no reason why you shouldn't be the most physically strong version of yourself possible. There's no excuse.
At every stage of life.
At every stage of life. There's no excuse for that. Because not only is it going to improve your health, it is going to improve, you know, in terms of the manosphere, your attractiveness to women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to improve the amount of respect that you demand. You know, I notice a lot of times myself, I'm like 5'10", 5'11", 205 to 210, right? I notice people getting treated differently in stores than I do. And it's because of my physique. You are going to demand a certain level of respect in the world. You're going to do overall better if you are in shape. There's no excuse. And then we get into the health aspect of it. Research has shown stronger people live longer. Stronger people, more muscle tissue, less likelihood of cardiovascular disease, less likelihood of cancer, less likelihood of all-cause mortality if you are stronger. There's no excuse. So you take this information, you're like, okay, well, that sounds great, but how am I going to go to the gym for 6 hours a week? Fact of the matter is, you don't. You can get these benefits if you train very intensely, the principles that I promote and I teach, about 2 to 3 times a week. Less if you have a good instructor, because a good instructor is going to help you generate a level of muscle fatigue you're not going to be able to do on your own, and it's going to help you do it safely.
Yeah.
But you can do it in about 2 to 3 full body workouts a week if you're doing it right. And people say, well, that's nothing. That can't be right. The way you're doing it,
yeah,
right, because your workouts are very low intensity.
Let's clarify here too. Like in my understanding, your physique is in like probably the top 5% of the population for men, at least in the United States and probably around the world. And you work out what, 90 minutes a week, something like that?
Now I'm doing about 2 full body. See, I don't break it down into a week. I will do a full body workout. Wait, 1, 2, 3 days, full body workout. 1, 2, 3 days, full body workout.
Okay.
Sometimes if I feel like it, in between then, I'll go do, a workout with small muscle group, calves, biceps, triceps, forearms, abs, something like that. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you feel like going to the gym more often. But my general split, full body, 2-3 days, full body. And that's probably about a sixth of what most people are doing.
Yeah.
And I'm a published fitness model. I've been in magazines, all of them.
Yep.
I've modeled for Under Armour. So yeah, I would say I'm in the top 1% physique because I actually got paid for it.
Yeah.
And I'm working out a sixth of what everyone else is. Genetics do have to do with that, but all these other people have the same genetics, if not better. And they're spending 6 times as much time.
Now, should men watching this and that, going to the gym, taking care of their health and lifting weights, should they really care about what other people look like? Or should they focus on themselves and just maximizing their own potential?
Right, because your own genetic potential is going to vary. It's going to vary between individuals. It's a very bad idea to try to emulate somebody else's physique or replicate it. So a lot of times you'll have someone who will say, oh, I want to look like that guy in the magazine. And that's how they sell you a bunch of garbage, because they tell you can look like that guy.
It's so tempting, right?
Right.
I want to look like that guy. He's fucking jacked.
Right. Yeah. And if a lot of times if you don't already look like that guy, you're not going to. And so it is best to focus on yourself and realize that these, physiques that resemble like Greek gods are extremely rare. And even in that case, drug enhanced. So, and keep in mind too, for most of your guys' physiques, drugs are not going to help. You're not, even if you poured on a ton of drugs, you still wouldn't look like the guys in these magazines, because genetics are the first prerequisite to developing this physique. But the thing is, so keep in mind when you start training to have realistic expectations. Not everybody can look like these magazine models or these bodybuilders. And that even like over the course of like a year, building 5 to 10 pounds of muscles, huge. Yeah, that's a great improvement. So a lot of times you look at the guy who's, he might be 200, 210 pounds, but he hasn't seen a gain in 10 years. And we're like, oh, let's do what he does. Meanwhile, Drew Bay makes this example. So I'm going to give him some credit for this. And then meanwhile, we ignore the 165 pound guy who started out at 140 pounds and over the course of 2 years put on 25 pounds.
Massive.
So we ignore that guy because of the way he looks, but we follow the other guy who has great genetics but hasn't made a gain in 10 years. Yeah. See, that's the problem, is just people's critical thinking skills.
And a more realistic expectation over time is, maybe 1 pound a year, 2 pounds a year.
Yeah. Like that. I mean, in the beginning, you'll put it on quick.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on, if you're 160, 170 pound dude and you never worked out, you'll probably get up to 175, 180 within the first year if you do things properly. Yeah. But then again, it's going to slow down because we don't have the ability for linear muscle growth. It's going to be very, very quick in the first 6 months.
Yep.
And then it's going to not plateau, not level off. You're going to have like micro gains. Like, you instead of measuring how much muscle you're putting on a month, measure how much muscle you're putting on every 6 months or every year. Yeah. The progression just slows down. It doesn't stop, but it slows.
I've seen studies by that Skylar Tanner, one of our speakers, HIIT trainer, has reviewed and stuff. And I think the outcome is like natural bodybuilders who have good genetic potential over a lifetime, guys who are competitors in like really, really good shape, they gain on average like 1 to 1.5 pounds of muscle a year over the course of like 20, 30 years. So it's like really, really fucking slow. And these are guys who are on it. Maybe we don't agree with how they train, but they have good capacity for training. They do train heavy and they lift hard and these things. And even then it's like fucking slow, except at the beginning where you're a couch potato, you introduce, weightlifting to your body and your body, snaps a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's just like being stuck in the house all winter long in New York, coming down to Orlando in April and being out in the sun. Your skin's going to react like that because it's not used to
What's
it.
crazy to me though is like 10 pounds of muscle. If I could promise you, not you necessarily, but someone else.
Oh, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. But 10 pounds of muscle over 10 years, that's fucking really good. I mean, 10 pounds of muscle, think about that in terms of like beef or something, or like steak. That's a lot of fucking meat.
Your body looks completely different.
Yeah. Now 10 years is a slow amount of time. It's a decade. But I mean, if you're going to get it no matter what, fuck yeah.
But that's a realistic expectation. People think that they're going to gain 10 pounds in a month.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen. And then they try weight gainers, those ridiculous sugar-packed shakes, and steroids, and then this workout program, that workout program. A lot of people think the reason they haven't responded is because they just haven't found the right program or the right supplement. And it's the fitness industry that is filling their head with this bullshit so that they continue to sell them stuff. It's not because you didn't find the right workout. And the HIIT community has a problem with this too. They think they didn't find the right time under load or the right volume or frequency or the right cadence. No, the reason you haven't seen the results you want is because of your genetics. They're breaking it down to like range of motion and cadence as well. That's crazy. I get these questions all day. And I'm like,
they're chasing dragons.
Yeah.
They're chasing unicorns and shit. Yeah.
It's like, you think that matters? You could literally hold a weight out like this and build muscle. It's got nothing to do with your range of motion.
Isometric
Cadence. Yeah.
I've been using that for my, I've had my left knee is really fucked up from high school football. I've had 3 surgeries now.
Ooh.
Even in my mid-20s, I had no cartilage left. I had to have some put on a couple years ago.
That's genetics. Like, I mean, you just, your cartilage was just crap.
Well, I ripped it off.
Oh, did you?
I dislocated it 5 times. Yeah.
Okay. So well, that makes a little more sense.
The other one's fine, but the left one's all messed up. But long story short, I used to love leg press, squat, things like that, but I can't do that anymore. Any kind of heavy movement, I just can't do it on that leg. Very, very minimal. So what I do is isometrics though. So static, wall sits, things like that. And that helps. Yeah.
Or you could just get like a 2x4 and, drill a belt onto it, put yourself at about, a little bit above 90 degrees of knee flexion. And
just like a belt squat, isometric belt squat.
Yeah. Sure. That's a great exercise too. Yeah. And people the thing is you don't see anybody doing it in the gym because it doesn't look good. And let's not forget, people are going in the gym for attention. They're not going in there a lot of times to do the most effective, efficient workout.
I've never seen anyone do a belt squat in the gym. I have.
Nope. But I was in there the other day with my buddy doing isometric triceps extensions and felt kind of weird doing it. But at the same time, it's like, I want people to see me doing this and be like, huh, never seen that before. Yeah. And then maybe open their eyes to a different method of training. So, and let's
talk about squats here though. This is a good, barbell squats and deadlifts, but mostly even barbell squats are like the sacred cow. Like even in deadlifts, people, they argue about which way to do it. Trap bar, barbell stuff. But squats, barbell squats are like the sacred fucking cow that nobody can attack and nobody can criticize no matter what. So what's your view on barbell squats, as conventionally done today versus something like a leg press or a belt squat, which a lot of people probably don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, it just comes down to safety. I mean, you're still working the same muscle groups. Okay. It's a lot safer to not be piling weight on your shoulders. Because if you ever look at how your spine is built, it goes from thicker vertebrae up to smaller vertebrae. It's built like a pyramid.
Yep.
Put a weight on top of a pyramid, it's going to collapse. So when you're putting all this weight, if you're doing heavy squats, putting a lot of weight on your back, in many cases, it's going to negatively affect your spine. The purpose of a leg press is to work the same exact muscle groups while removing pressure on the spine from the equation quite a bit. Not completely, but quite a bit, depending on the leg press.
A belt squat reduces like all this because basically...
Yeah, because you're loading through the hips. Yeah. So I love to squat. I like the challenge because it makes you want to throw up every time. And
barbell squat or belt squat?
Barbell.
Okay.
I barbell squat because a lot of the reasons is like down here you're not gonna find a good leg press. They're trash. Life Fitness, what's called
Cybex.
It's all so bad that you're better off doing a barbell squat. A lot of the times this equipment is so bad you're better off finding how to do free weights properly. Yep. That's most of the reason I squat. Second reason is I like it. I have a really strong squat for some reason. And we all gravitate towards things we're good at, and I'm guilty of it too. I like putting 315 on there and doing it 15 times with good form.
Damn.
That feels good to me,
That's fucking
and I
heavy
feel
cutting
like the
reps.
man after. That's why I do it. So a lot of people are going to gravitate towards exercise they're good at, but a lot of people.
You're not doing it for magical benefits.
No.
You're not doing it for stabilizers and all this bullshit.
No, and I think the reason there. So you see the people who can squat a lot. They had the physiology conducive to a powerful and strong squat. Big, thick quads, thick ass, with the right geometry. And then we're like, oh, they got that way because of squats. No, they squat because they are that way.
Yeah.
That's the difference. In terms of working a stabilizer muscle, there's no such thing as a stabilizer muscle. A muscle can stabilize. That's a function. When you are doing a barbell curl, your glutes are stabilizing. You wouldn't do a curl for the sake of working your glutes, would you?
Yeah, of course not.
No, but they're acting as stabilizers along with your hamstrings. So why are we doing all these exercises for the sake of working our stabilizers in terms of our abdominals?
No.
They're involved in the movement, but just because a muscle is involved in an exercise does not mean it is appropriately or effectively stimulated for an adaptation. And in this case, the barbell squat with your glutes, they're stabilizers, but they're not effectively stimulated. And we can agree on that. Your abs are not effectively stimulated. And most of these other movements that are using them as stabilizers. It's bullshit.
Speaking of abs, what is your view just on ab exercises, period? Crunches, or should you do it? Like, to be honest, I don't do anything direct ab work. So is direct ab work useful, or should you just count on a pull down to, activate your abs and exhaust them?
It's useful. I don't do them. So the people because I've always had developed abs, people are going to generally, work on parts that are lagging.
Wait, you're a fitness model and you don't do any direct ab work?
No, I do no direct ab work.
And you have 6-pack abs?
Yep.
That's hysterical.
Right. Because it has to do with the amount of body fat you're carrying above the tissue.
Yeah.
So when choosing an exercise, identify the muscle's function and the joint function congruent to that muscle's function and load that function. In this case, your biceps. Your biceps mostly produces elbow flexion. Also shoulder flexion, shoulder extension, stuff like that. Identify the function of the muscle, load it by adding resistance. That's it. What is the function of your abs? Spinal flexion. This. They do stabilize, but that's another function of them. But the primary function of them is to bring this point to this point. That's a crunch or a sit-up. So the best way to work a muscle is identify its function and load that function and load that muscle, produce a deep level muscle fatigue, preferably training it to failure, and that'll be enough to stimulate it. So all these fancy, stupid ab exercises, they involve the abs, sure. I can do, I could stand on one leg and hold a log over my head. I'm involving the abs. It's not an ab exercise. It's a movement that involves the abs.
And there's tons of things. Even a barbell press or a chest press is going to use your abs. A pull down will use your abs.
Your abs are going to be involved in absolutely everything. I've never, and people say like, oh, you got to work on your core first. I've supervised over 10,000, maybe 15,000 sessions. I've never seen someone unable to perform a movement because their abs failed. That's bullshit. You don't start with your core. Your core is not your foundation. This is what a lot of the fitness industry says. Oh, you start with your core because that's your foundation. You work your way up.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good, but it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The abs will improve due to indirect effect, but for most people, it doesn't hurt to throw an exercise in. Why not? Okay. You want to work every major muscle group. Personally, I don't, because I do things at barbell squats and I have big, thick, strong abs. I just don't need them.
And ultimately, too, most people are going to benefit if they're fat, which most people are. They're going to benefit from basically the abs in the kitchen kind of mindset. They need to change how they eat, right?
Yeah. Exercise alone is not enough to change your physique. And anyone who tells you it is lying, or they have no idea what they're talking about.
And you're a trainer and you're an entrepreneur, and this is your main business, is training people.
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's savage.
Well, it's the truth. Exercise alone is not enough. If I have someone come in and they say, oh, I want to, 30 minutes twice a week, that sounds great. I want to lose this much weight. I was like, all right, well, how's your diet? You have to adjust your diet. Exercise, and the reason people think this, because they say, oh, well, I know someone who knows someone who went to Orange Theory Fitness and lost 25 pounds. Did they change their diet? No, you're lying. They did. There are some fringe cases. If you're 260 pounds and you're 5'3", you're like a troll.
Yeah.
If you only do Orange Theory Fitness, you're going to lose 20 pounds. But the housewife who's 155 wants to get back down to 125. She only does Orange Theory Fitness. She might lose 2, but she's going to ruin her knees in the process. The fact is, you need to change your diet in order to improve your physique, because your crappy diet is what gave you that physique. What makes you think you can continue that diet and change your physique?
So to ballpark estimate it, you're like McGuff back in the day used to say that your physique was 80% diet, 20%, how you work out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he went to 90 sometimes. So in terms of Dr. Doug McGuff, the author of Body by Science, this book, so what's your view on percentage wise, like your physique being influenced by training versus diet? What's the ratio in your mind?
I would say your physique is, this is what I tell my clients, 80% genetics, 10% diet, 10% how you train, because it's still mostly your genetics.
But even with your genetic, all right.
So we take genetics out.
Yeah. Because you can't change
80,
that.
20, 90, 10. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with them completely.
Yeah.
And through my own experience, the thing is, even if people don't change their diet, if they're resistance training and they're properly stimulating muscle, they will notice a body composition change. They notice by the way their clothes feel. This is what I tell a lot of my clients, get a pair of pants you haven't worn in 10, 15 years, try them on, and then try them on every week. Eventually, they fit.
So you're much more in the clothes, how do your clothes fit, and maybe look in the mirror
attitude, because
skin caliper shit and all these I've done DEXA scans, which is a way to measure body fat, lean mass, things like that. But for a lot of people, you probably just the simple stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of people aren't interested in that.
For progress. Basically.
Yeah, a lot of people. If I get a 185-pound 52-year-old woman in, she's not going to want to lift her shirt up and have me do skin fold. I do that, of course I do, but I do that more for the people who are, women who are closer to 22, 23% body fat, not this woman who's like 38. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In their cases, they're already self-conscious. They don't want to be getting, they know they got fat there. They don't want it pinched. So trust me, we don't need to validate them.
Before we continue, I want to mention to the guys watching, I'm going to read the chat more. I've been kind of ignoring you guys, my bad, but I'm going to read a little more. If you have questions for Jay, let me know. We'll get into one here real quick. A guy asked about stretching, just basic thoughts on stretching as it relates to training and your health and things like that.
When you make a muscle stronger, it will get stronger throughout its entire range of motion. There's a full range of motion, there's effective range of motion. So its full range of motion will be stronger, meaning you can put a joint in a more unsafe position and be able to get out of that position, which I'll refer to as enhanced flexibility, being able to go in positions.
But don't you want to train the stretch? Isn't that a good thing?
No.
With weights?
Stretching is unnecessary for most people, unless you like it and it feels good. What stretching is it's a neurological phenomenon. So basically, you have something called a stretch reflex. So I put my arm all the way out here. You'll notice your biceps tighten. That is your nervous system sending the signal to involuntarily contract your biceps to avoid a dangerous range of motion, to protect the joint. So if I leave it here long enough, the nervous system is going to permit more range of motion over time and allow the joint to go in that position, because something on the environment is we need to, and it's realizing that it's safe. It's relatively temporary, that phenomenon. So if you repeat that over time, your nervous system is going to permit more flexibility over time and allow your joints.
Passive stretching you're referring to as well,
right?
Versus like having a dumbbell and like training the stretch, which people
you
do,
never
right?
You never want to train.
People do that all the time, though, right?
Right, because you're putting, because when a muscle is fully lengthened, you're in what's called passive insufficiency. And if you load passive insufficiency, the reason you're in passive insufficiency is because a lack in leverage, less actin and myosin overlap, so it can't produce much force. You're loading the joint in an unsafe position. You're just asking for an injury. Yeah. So if you want to stretch, fine. It's not very necessary. You can't stretch your muscles. You can't stretch them and pull them apart and make them long. You can't make muscles longer. Stretching is just a neurological phenomenon. Can be useful in some cases, but is it necessary for an overall fitness regimen? Absolutely not. don't stretch before your training. If anything, stretch afterwards. Stretching before your training, research shows, actually reduces a muscle's ability to produce force and increases the likelihood of injury.
Damn.
So you don't want to stretch before training. A lot of people stretch before sporting events. It's basically ritual. It's basically like a bonding moment.
For the team,
It doesn't produce any benefit. It actually will make you weaker and more likely.
It sounds like it's over relaxing the muscle before you need to intensely contract it.
Right.
Yeah, but after it makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Day Simone's the guy maybe we should talk about here. He wrote the 2 books at the bottom. We're talking about these before we went live. So one of them, highly recommend it if you guys can see it, is congruent exercise, and the predecessor is a moment arm exercise, which is a little more advanced and technical.
Yeah.
Since we're on stretching, which I think heavily relates to the biomechanics you're talking about here. Talk to me about these books, congruent exercise.
Yeah, so moment arm, I haven't read congruent exercise, but I have my copy of moment arm exercise, and I refer to it quite frequently. So
these are books on biomechanics for strength training, basically.
Basically, yeah. I'm trying to see if the main takeaway from this is how to effectively and safely load a muscle. And he'll actually go through the exercises and show you moment arms and the fulcrum, and he breaks it down for you the most effective and efficient way and the most safe and efficient exercises to use for training your muscles, and shows you how to perform them. So this is kind of it's kind of a technical book.
Yeah.
But if you can read through this and digest it, you're going to understand how your body works and how to protect your joints and how to load your muscles most effectively.
Let's try to give an example. So I can give a personal one with this. When I first got my copy of Moment Arm Exercise, it was about, if you guys can see that, 2009, 2010, right before I dropped out of college. And I was taking an anatomy course at the time because one of my studies was like health sciences. So it's my first anatomy course, and it was very frustrating. Just a lot of bullshit, a lot of just like generic memorization. Shit, I'm not a fan of for learning. I want to learn things and understand them. Long story short, though, I was reading this book, and this was kind of mind-blowing at the time. It was a little bit difficult to read, too. Moment Arm is not an easy book. The follow-up Congruent's easier, we were talking about. Anyway, I saw my anatomy professor at UCF at the gym where I was still like training and stuff, and he was doing a behind-the-neck overhead press, which Bill is not a fan of. And I know this in terms of anatomy and biomechanics is just stupid. He, as an anatomy professor, he should know that, and he didn't. And that was kind of like a light bulb for me. Like, Bill is a guy who's taking this seriously and trying to write about it from the strength training perspective. He says hell no to that. And here's my anatomy professor. I ended up dropping out of the course, and that was kind of one of the moments I was like, fuck this bullshit. This is frustrating. It's not good education. It's much more memorization, and the teacher's doing stupid shit in real life with his anatomy. So, can you give some examples on some of the errors guys make with biomechanics?
Oh yeah, it's funny because that's the appeal to authority fallacy, right? I mean, just because he's a teacher, and this is the problem too, because you've got a lot of strength and conditioning certified coaches, people who've taken exercise physiology in college, and they
professors.
Yeah, and well, this trainer, he has a bachelor's in kinesiology, and it's like, okay, but who's to say what he was taught isn't wrong? Because it is generally. You've got these guys talking about like all these posterior chain. It drives me nuts.
Behind the neck press, good or bad?
It's terrible, because think about it this way: that's a submission for law enforcement and MMA, is to put your joint in this position and pull on it. Yeah. So if you feel the stretch reflex and your joint is reluctant to go in a particular position, training the joint in that position, it should be common sense that that's a bad idea. And a lot of the time, I mean, that comes from old bodybuilding folklore. Like you see Arnold like doing behind the neck, and Arnold also does this, whatever this Arnold press, as if pronating, supinating upon it's anything to do with your shoulder, which it does not, as we can see, because it's not moving. One thing this book points out, that a huge takeaway I got from this book, is squatting below parallel.
Okay.
And with your bad knee, you can attest to that.
Yeah.
This book it lays out how the function of your kneecap pretty much deflects force between your tibia and your fibia. And squatting below parallel creates almost a prying effect on your knee joint and on your patella. it's extremely dangerous. Not only to even just go in that position and create that prying effect and those shearing forces, to load it with the amount of weight a lot of people are doing.
200, 300, 400 pounds.
It's ruining your knees. In the fitness industry, there's, ass to grass, the deeper you can squat, I don't know, I guess the tougher you are or something, but you're just destroying your knees. So you want to squat at or maybe slightly below parallel, but the deeper you go, the more it's going to affect your knee joint. Negatively. And
we mentioned earlier too, you mentioned basically with the barbell squat conventionally, it's on the back of the neck or traps or whatever, versus a hip belt squat where the weight is being so Bill is a huge fan of the belt squat. And that just seems like another one that's like, if you can still squat, it's still super hard. In my opinion, it's more effective, way more effective, and
definitely more
it's
effective.
Even more fun in a way. I mean, it's not as like, super exhausting as a barbell squat loaded up here, but you can tell it's much more local to your legs. And there's no other involvement like that. So you can
because and here's the thing too, and this is what drives me insane. People are choosing exercises that involve additional muscle groups with the erroneous belief that it's more effective. So we're going to do a push-up and a burpee and a jumping jack because we're going to involve a bunch of different muscles. One key factor in effective, efficient, and safe exercise is called continuous muscular loading. You want the muscle to remain under tension continuously. So that way you're continuously generating fatigue and you're going to approach that deep level fatigue and that stimulus more quickly and safely. So if you're doing a push-up, a row, a burpee, and all this other bullshit that the boot camps do, you're creating what's called discontinuous loading, muscular loading. It's just less effective and less efficient.
It's the constant starting and stopping.
Starting and stop. You don't want to involve a bunch of different muscle groups. You want to focus on a targeted muscle group, focus on generating fatigue in that targeted muscle group, fatiguing it to a deep, meaningful level, then move on to the next muscle group. The only reason people combine all these muscle groups is because it looks fancy and it looks good to them, but it's highly ineffective and even more inefficient than it is ineffective.
It reminds me of making like a shake, protein shake or whatever. And people just, you can make a good one that's like simple maybe, for whatever the ingredients and taste are. But if you just keep adding bullshit, eventually it's this mixture of just.
That's a good analogy. That's like under the impression that adding more shit into your shake makes it a better shake.
Infinitely. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I know. It's and that's what I see a lot on Instagram and YouTube now. You got these assholes, quite frankly, who are they're in great shape and they're doing what looks like a trick. It's almost like it's not an exercise, but they're promoting it as an exercise. It looks kind of cool, looks fancy. They involve a bunch of different muscle groups, but we need to remember the driving factor in stimulating your body to respond is intensity of muscular effort. And if you are involving a bunch of different muscle groups, you're lowering the intensity of effort in the involved muscle groups. So it's less effective. Just the way it is.
Let's shift gears a little bit to something I think guys are going to much more easily understand, and it's going to grate them a little harder too. So let's talk about sets. How many sets do you do when you work out for a chest press? How many sets?
One set.
One,
no.
Not multiple, not 2, 3, 4, 5?
No.
Why do you do one?
My question is, why do you do more than one? So here's a good way of breaking it down. I do one set, which lasts about 45 to 90 seconds of continuous muscular loading, meaning I'm not locking out at the top. I'm not resting at the bottom. The muscle is under constant load.
You're not rearranging your hands and shit.
Right. Yeah. So my one set will last about 8 to 12 reps, and that's 60 to 90 seconds of continuous muscular loading.
How fast are you moving each rep?
I'm moving around 5 seconds on the positive, 5 seconds on the negative. Generally slow down the lowering phase a little bit. So each rep will take about 10 seconds, 8 reps, 9 reps, 80, 90 seconds, right? Your traditional gym goer will do 3 sets, but he'll do them quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
The average set for a typical gym goer lasts about 10 seconds. They do 3 sets. What's that? 30 seconds time under load. I'm doing 3 times the amount of work and the amount of muscular work and metabolic work in one set as they are in 3.
And you're training to failure as well.
Training to failure too. So volume is defined improperly as sets and reps. Volume is time under load. My one set is about 90 seconds time under load. Their 3 sets is an accumulative 30. So I'm actually doing in my shorter workout, in my 1 set to failure, 3 times the same, if not more, metabolic and muscular work over time as they are in their workout.
Yeah. A lot of this comes down to, I think, just basic physics, F equal MA.
Mhm.
So you're basically, by slowing down rather than throwing things, which reduces force.
Right.
Well, it's a way to be explosive and generate more force, but the muscles end up getting less tension, less force on them, right?
Right. The momentum, if you're lifting quickly, momentum helps carry an object through space.
Yeah.
So if you're lifting quickly, your body wants to move quickly because it's going to conserve energy. And like we said earlier, your body is looking to conserve energy all the time. Drew Bay made a really good analogy. He says, go to a college campus. And he goes, you'll see the sidewalks, but you also see paths cutting through to different buildings.
Through the grass and stuff.
Through the grass. Because we without even realizing it, choose the most metabolically and energy efficient way to perform anything physical. So using momentum, your body naturally uses momentum to do the same thing. It's almost the equivalent of creating your own path through a college campus.
And it's not just momentum, it can be gravity too.
Yeah.
So guys who do a bicep curl, then they drop it, bicep curl, drop it. They let the gravity move the weight rather than their muscles, right?
Right. So they're using momentum, which is reducing continuous load. It's taking load off of the muscle. It's producing more force, which is going to transmit to the joints and possibly produce an injury. But the reason a lot of people move so quickly and do this is men, so they can do more weight. Women, so it's easier. Most of the time it's because it's easier. But men, if I do a barbell curl, I can only do about 50, 60 pounds because I'm doing it properly. But you'll see men doing 80, 90 and swinging the thing.
Yeah.
Because to them, it's more impressive. And whoever the hell they think is watching them, it's more impressive. Yeah. And that's a lot of the reason why people move quickly too. They can just do more weight.
Yeah, damn. Let's talk about, it brings to mind negative training versus positive training. So talk to me about negative and positive training. What is that? Is negative training important? Training the negative. This is something a lot of guys I think are familiar with, but maybe they're not super familiar with. So positive and negative training.
So the negative is the eccentric phase, the lowering phase of the range of motion. So you've got the positive with the concentric, which is raising the weight. You have the static or isometric, which is the weight not moving, stationary. And then the lowering. Yep, with the eccentric. So there used to be, the old Nautilus theory used to believe that the eccentric produced more of a stimulus. There is new research by James Fisher and James Steele over in the UK.
I know them. Yeah.
That show it does not. Obviously, you want to lower it. So emphasizing the negative is not going to produce a better stimulus or better results, but it is beneficial because it helps you maintain continuous load. And it helps you do a slow turnaround. So it's going to make it more effective and efficient by maintaining continuous load, by slowing down the negative. But it's not going to produce additional benefit, like negative only training, simply lowering weight. I do it with some clients sometimes because their ability to tolerate intensity is very bad. So maybe at the end of a set, they'll reach what they believe is failure, but I know they have more in them. So I'll lift the weight for them and have them lower it until they can't even hold the weight. So it's a good training method for a trainer who knows what they're doing to implement into clients in order to get them to work harder. And
the negative contraction is technically stronger than the positive, right?
Right.
Your
because
ability to keep the fibers together is better than
there's less intramuscular friction, and it allows for more cross bridging between the actin and myosin in the myofibrils. So more cross bridging, it's kind of like Velcro, like they attach. So when you're lowering, you have more opportunity for these cross bridges to meet and attach, and it creates a better contraction, more contractile force. As we notice, like we can lower a heck of a lot more weight than we can push.
Yeah, it's about 40%, I think, right?
It's around 40, yeah. I mean, give or take between individuals and leverage and all that kind of stuff. But
so in your view, though, most guys, based on the way they train, speed, throwing things around, explosive, all that, they're probably what's the fucking word? I'm trying to say negating their negative, but that's not it.
They're removing it.
They're removing it. Yeah. They're what is a brain fart? The word. They're not even. There's no care for it. Basically, that part of the contraction.
Right.
In a review, both the positive and negative are important.
Yeah. They're. I mean, if
they're neglecting it, they're neglecting.
Yeah. If they are neglecting the negative, I mean,
that's bad, right?
If you took these people and you had them focus on the negative, they would see better results, not because they focus on the negative, but because they focus on continuous loading.
Okay.
So the reason is, they're moving quickly and skipping on the negative because they can do more weight and do more reps. And that's what they think they're supposed to do. Because especially you see on like YouTube and Instagram, like, oh, get your PR.
So that goal is giving them a blind spot.
Right. Because their goal is like, okay, well, I need to do 225 10 times today. That's what I need to do. If I can do it 10 times, that means I improved. No, it doesn't. It does not at all.
And what's the real, and here's a fun question. What's the real goal of exercise? Specifically for, with regard to training for your health, maybe not a sport or anything like that. For the average guy who's an American or whatever, and he doesn't, he's a part of a team. What is the goal of exercise? Is it lifting reps or what is the goal?
Well, the goal exercise is strengthening activity. Exercise, by my definition, and the definition most people in the HIIT community, is to improve muscular strength and size and all the general trainable factors of functional ability. It's muscular strength and size, muscular strength, muscular size, cardiovascular efficiency, metabolic efficiency, bone and connective tissue strength. That's what exercise is meant to improve. Anything else is just a side effect of improving those 5 factors.
Let's make it clear that that's a lot different what you just went through scientifically here than most people, if maybe they can't articulate it, but basically they view the goal of exercise as lifting weight up and down.
Right.
That to them is like the goal. And you're thinking much more deeply about it and scientifically as I'm understanding it.
So the weight is a means of measuring your progress. So the way I do it is I time under load. So say my target time under load is 60 seconds. This workout, I can do 100 pounds. I got 55 seconds. Okay. Next workout. Yeah. And I use a stopwatch. Next workout, I use the same 100 pounds. I get 70 seconds. That's an indication to progressively overload, to add resistance, to keep it around your targeted time under load. That's an improvement in strength. What I like to tell clients and what Ken Hutchins says the weight just simply comes along for the ride. The goal of the weight is to load the muscle, to create meaningful tension in the muscle. The weight is just coming along for the ride, and the weight is just a means of measuring your progress and making adjustments based on your response. That's all it is.
It's a tool to improve your body.
Yeah.
Most people I think of it, the opposite. The goal is always like just throwing weights around to show off or whatever.
Well, yeah, but some of these compound exercises can be a display of strength, but it's a very poor measure of strength. When I was 20 years old, I could bench 225 like 22 times.
Damn.
Like, I think the most I ever did was 385 when I was 19. Okay.
Wow.
What's the difference? I was benching a lot. I was practicing.
Yeah.
Now I'm about 25 pounds heavier, maybe 30 pounds heavier of generally muscle tissue from 19 years old. And I can do 225, maybe 10.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I don't bench because there's that skill component.
But you're still doing a chest press.
Yes,
exercise.
I do joint congruent chest press exercises. A bench press is a very poor chest exercise, but generally people use it as a measure of strength. It's not a measure of strength. It's a display of strength. Although I'm much stronger than I was when I was 19, I cannot bench as much. And that is simply because of the skill component has been removed and I haven't practiced benching.
And this is I think a great point because most guys are not going to, the average guy going to the gym does not view a skill difference between a dumbbell press, a barbell press, and a chest press on a selectorized machine, a stack machine, selectorized. And I know what you mean. Like my bench press on a barbell used to be huge too. Not 385, it was 315. I got 225 like 14, 15 times.
That's above average.
Yeah. I was 17 years old at the time. But
because we were benching a lot because that's what we thought we needed to do.
I loved it.
It was fun.
It's a ton of fun. Yeah, it was the best. More so than squat, more so than anything else. But yeah, I'm physically stronger than I am now. I know that I can look in the mirror. My chest and my arms are bigger than they were back then. But I don't train with the barbell anymore. I'm not convinced it's good for my shoulders long term either.
Nope.
I'd much rather do a selectorized machine, even dumbbells, almost anything else other than a barbell bench. So if I was to ever be a competitor with it, not that I have the genetics for it, I would do it again. But unless until I actually care about that specific skill movement, I'm not going to care.
Right. And you wouldn't see, you won't see, because there is a skill component and strength component, you wouldn't see it transfer. Like I've had clients who will get on one of my Nautilus machines and they'll be doing 100 pounds or 110 pounds. I remember just this one particular situation stuck in my head. The guy said, "Oh, that's a really bad bench press." Well, it's not a bench press. It's like they're two completely different things. That's like a rabbit compared to a deer. They're completely different things,
Yeah.
but they associate. And I have another theory about why at this gym I go to now, I was on the ab machine and I could do the stack. And I think they designed the machines to allow you to do a lot of weight. They manipulate the leverage within the machine so you can select a lot of weight so you feel better about yourself and you feel stronger.
Yeah.
Because you get this, 55-year-old middle-aged out of shape guy, he puts 110 on there and he's like, oh. So maybe we can change those and make him put 220 on there so it makes him feel better and he keeps going to the gym. Yeah. So I have a theory about that. But, a lot of the times too, that chest press, that's not a bench press. It's not going to transfer to your bench press. It's going to make the muscles involved in that movement stronger, which when you go practice the bench press, you're going to get stronger than you probably were before. Like now, if I practice bench press for a few months, which I wouldn't because it's a bad exercise, I'd probably be able to bench 400. I mean, it just takes time.
I had a friend in high school. He ended up having the highest bench out of the whole high school at the end. There's a few guys that hit like 315, but he was like 350, 380 by the end of it. So you're really high, genetically, a super gifted guy.
How tall is he?
5'11".
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was jacked.
Was he burly and?
No, he was very lean.
So we just said
strong.
This is another genetic component.
Yeah,
neurological efficiency.
But this is exactly what I'm getting at. So he used to not bench and train at all, and then sophomore, junior, he got into bench press training, generally, but he loved the bench press in particular. It was his best exercise. He went from a 1 rep max of like 180 to like 280 in a few months. So like 2-3 months, like his progression was just ridiculous. And at that age, we didn't understand why that was. It was cool to see it, and he loved it. I was cheering him as a friend, so I was cheering him on. But seeing that massive leap in his 1 rep max, which in football, we were training with weights, that was really impressive to see him do that. But looking back on it, it's mostly he didn't physically change in like a couple months, not much anyway. It was just the training the skill of a barbell and doing it not every day of the week, but 5 days a week, over and over and over and over again. And it makes so much sense now looking back on it. But if you don't know like what kind of questions to ask and like what to look for, it's just like it's magic.
You would assume that he had some secret when it came to training.
Yeah. What's he
but
eating?
He's got a ridiculous. I mean, his musculoskeletal geometry, where his muscles attach, his limb length, his chest width, all these things taken consideration, especially for these like powerlifting, these barbell exercises, how much you can do. So he just happened to have the physiology. Yeah. That made him very good at benching. And these are the people you also see becoming competitive benchers and squatters. They have the right physiology in order to do well at that. It's probably a similar story. 16, 17 years old, notices his bench goes through the roof, makes him feel awesome. So he pursues that.
You get dopamine hits from it.
Ends up as a power lifter. And then we take these people who got a great bench. They really have no idea why, but it was their genetics. And then we ask them what they did, as if they have some secret and that's why they're there, without taking into consideration any other factors.
And there isn't even any malice in it. Like people are asking the questions, they just want to answer and help someone out.
Yeah, because
they just don't know.
Right, because they I mean, I didn't know anything about genetics till I was like 22, 23 years old. Yeah. They don't know the importance of them until someone explains it to them, and that's basically what I'm here doing.
I'm gonna look through some of the questions there and ignoring these guys for a bit. But before moving off of the bench, you're saying that a barbell bench, you don't do it. Number one, you wouldn't do it anyway. Why is that? What's wrong with the barbell? You're saying barbell bench press versus?
Well, it's an Olympic lift. It's I choose exercises that involve very little skill and a high amount of muscular loading.
Okay.
A barbell bench press is going to require a lot more skill. And it's going to take away from the amount of muscular loading and fatigue that you're going to get out of it. High skill exercises are going to reduce the amount of muscular loading and the efficiency of muscular loading. But what we're after is exercises that provide the most efficient muscular loading.
So you're saying skill components like, say, a power clean is a very complex movement.
Right.
So skill, like a power clean, is basically the enemy of loading the target musculature. These two are... You can't really have both at the same time.
Yeah. You work a lot of muscle, but you don't work any of the muscles deeply and efficiently. As deeply or efficiently as you could if you focused on training those individual
because there's just too much going on.
Right. And plus the bench press, I mean, the function of the chest is pretty much humeral adduction. The bench press just does this. It doesn't have that inward motion, and you can feel it. You put your hand on your chest, the muscle fibers contract. So I like a chest press that provides a little bit of humeral adduction. something that comes in, or a chest fly.
In the
A bench
absence
press
of
doesn't do that.
in the absence of a chest press, then you use dumbbells.
No, I wouldn't even use dumbbells.
Damn.
Because the thing is, the problem with some dumbbell exercises that provide just one path of resistance, and that's downward. So depending on where the dumbbell is positioned relative to, where your muscles and limbs are positioned, the amount of resistance it's going to provide is going to change. So for instance, you're going to get the most resistance on a dumbbell when you're down here. That's when you're in passive insufficiency and your muscle's in the weakest position. Also very unsafe position on your joint.
Yeah.
That's when you're getting the most tension. Where your muscles are the strongest, somewhere in the middle, you're not getting as much tension. This is where you want to load the muscle the most, somewhere in the middle of the range of motion of most exercises.
Yeah.
Where you're getting the most actin and myosin cross bridging. You have the most mechanical leverage. That's where you want to load the muscle the hardest. And then when you come up to the top, nothing.
Yep.
You've got nothing on your chest. And that's because the resistance is being
Just basically locked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I would, if there was no chest press or no cable machine where I could do a fly and there were just dumbbells, I do a push-up instead. Push-up is better.
Damn.
Because if you do a proper push-up, you can actually create continuous loading. A dumbbell would be a less effective, less efficient way of creating continuous loading in your pecs.
If you were to use a dumbbell, you'd probably do it through a limited range of motion then.
Right.
In the middle.
I wouldn't come all the way back and I wouldn't go all the way out.
Yeah.
I would stay within a more effective range of motion, avoiding locking out and avoiding, coming way too far down.
So like the
stretching your
middle
shoulder.
60, 70% of the range of motion.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to stay in the part of the range of motion where you're challenging the muscle the most. But you'll notice what a lot of people are doing in the gym is they're avoiding the positions where their muscles are challenged.
They go to the easiest, the
They go.
entrance. Yep. And they do that with everything. Leg press, pull downs.
Yep. You'll see a lot of people throw a bunch of weight on the squat rack, but they'll, in between each rep, they'll stand there for 5 seconds because continuous muscular loading is hard.
Yeah.
And that's why it's effective. And that's why it's efficient. And that's also why people avoid it.
Why do you train to failure? Obviously, a lot of people don't. They do. They just do more or less numerical things. 10 reps. I'm going to do 5 sets of 10 reps or whatever. It's just like these numbers they make up. Why do you train to failure? I mean, you're doing 1 set, so that's unusual. But then you're training to failure too, which is also generally pretty unusual. Why is that?
Failure, when you approach muscle failure or reach muscle failure, it's an indication that you have completely recruited and fatigued all available muscle fibers or motor units in that particular muscle group. You have, and the goal of an exercise is to recruit and fatigue as many motor units as you can in order to stimulate them and send that signal to the body that its current physical capacity is inadequate for its environment. So you get to the point where you're stuck and you can't move weight. That has told your body that its physical capacity for the current environment it's in is inadequate and must improve. A good, I think Arthur Jones said this too, take a set of 10 repetitions where you can't get the 11th. You ask people, what do you think is the most effective rep of that set, the first or the last? And they're going to say the last. And why? Because of the intensity of effort. And that's why we train to failures, because you can be sure that you have recruited all available motor units or muscle fibers and be sure that you gave it the optimal stimulus. Sure, you can stimulate your muscle to adapt by not training to failure, but you are positive that you gave it the ultimate stimulus when you do.
There's a certainty to it then.
Yeah. And, we may only need to go 80, 85% to muscle failure or recruit 80, 85% of available motor units, but we don't know. So hit them all. But a lot of people avoid this because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And also, especially in the HIIT community, a lot of people's definition of muscle failure is not my definition of muscle failure. They'll get to the point where like, oh, that was kind of tough to set it down. No. I will take you personally when I train people, I take them those 3, 4, 5 repetitions past where they would have stopped.
Damn.
That's where the benefit is.
We're going to go do a workout right after this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
I've been training this way for a long time, about 10 years now. But,
you probably got the hang of it, but
it's still good to have a trainer though. I always train harder with a trainer, even with a partner, going through the workout with me or right after me.
And that's huge too. Having, if people are really serious about their results, get a good trainer. Yep. 99% of them are morons. But if you can find a good one, especially one that practices high intensity training principles, choose them. Because there's been research as well that showed, they took 2 groups of people, they had them both trained with a trainer for a certain amount of time, then they broke them in half. They had one group continue with the trainer, one group continue on their own. The group that continued on their own didn't improve, but it didn't go backwards. The group that continued with a trainer continued to improve.
Yeah.
It is that substantial of an effect if it's a good trainer. But
I
a
think there's
trainer,
something-
not a babysitter, not a workout caddy, not a cheerleader, a trainer.
I think there's something to this for men about someone observing you. You pay more
The observer
attention.
effect, yep.
There's a focus, you maintain a little better. When there's no one around, if you cheat or fuck up or you get, whatever, you're tired or lazy or whatever, no one's going to know.
Right.
But if you have someone who cares and they do know what they're talking about, they're going to keep an eye on you.
And the trainer's not going to let you slack off.
Yeah,
I've had instances where I was, kind of training my trainers to become trainers.
Yeah.
And they would, shadow me training somebody, and you would see their performance go through the roof because they don't want to embarrass themselves. That's the part of the trainer effect too.
So we're beginning for hour and 40 minutes. Start wrapping up soon. But before we do, let's do a couple hot seat questions. It's kind of rapid fire questions and your basic response to it. So what's your take on CrossFit?
Bullshit. Awful.
Take on P90X style DVD programs and shit.
Bullshit. Awful.
Muscle confusion.
No such thing.
Explosive training.
Unnecessary for improving explosivity or power or speed. Moving slowly can do this.
Someone in the chat mentioned they're saying, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Mark Ripto's the true god or whatever. So Mark Ripto, you know who that is?
I don't even know who that is.
Oh yeah.
But if he isn't agreeing with what I'm saying, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's a very conventional, very popular strength training guy.
Okay.
Yeah, from back in the day. Men versus women with lifting weights. Is weightlifting bad for women? Is it going to make them big and bulky?
No, because you need to have genetic predispositions. Most men can't get big and bulky from lifting, and they generally have thicker, stronger bones, more testosterone, and more of the prerequisites for building huge muscles. Very few women, almost none, will get big and bulky. What they will do was they'll improve their body composition. They'll look better. They'll look tighter, firmer. Leaner. In that term that I hate, tone. They'll look more toned.
Yeah. The last one here for you. Damn it. Just slip through my head on this one. Fuck. Well, let's do one more thing. Take on cardio. Is cardio, good? What is it? What's cardio?
Your body doesn't know the difference. Cardio is a myth. There seems to be a belief that steady state locomotor activity, such as running, biking, swimming, has a better effect on your cardiovascular improvement and fat loss. The fact of the matter is it burns very little fat. It's a very time-consuming, over time dangerous way to burn very little fat. And in terms of improving your cardiovascular fitness, we went over that earlier. A lot of it's a skill component. People are using jogging as a measure of cardiovascular fitness without understanding the skill component and how that affects the cardiovascular system. Resistance training, anything that aggressively and deeply fatigues the muscles is going to have a better effect on cardiovascular improvements, and steady state activity just doesn't have the same effect. Strength training is more effective, and it's safer because your knees and your joints, they have a lifespan.
Yeah.
So you want to choose exercises that reduce the amount of open and closing of those joints, if you can, because you want to preserve your joints. So people who are running for their cardiovascular system, they're just wearing out their knees at the same time. So
I've thought for a while that running is like a really shitty lightweight leg press.
It's going to have a different demand too. I mean, the reason a muscle would get thicker and stronger is to be able to produce more contractile force. So you've got to place a stimulus on it in which its ability to produce that force is stressed. Running is low intensity, low contractile force. Your body will actually atrophy muscle to get better at running, because basically what you're telling the body is that the environment needs it to do very little contractile force over a long period of time.
Yep.
Big muscles are bad at that. Big muscles are for producing huge amounts of contractile force for a short period of time. Smaller muscles are better for producing low amounts of contractile force for a long period of time.
Yeah,
so you actually reduce muscle tissue.
I haven't seen any bodybuilders running marathons lately.
Yeah, and their physical ability too would be terrible, because the more muscle tissue you hold, the more resources it's going to take to move that body. Yeah. You'll notice big bodybuilders, they'll get tired very, very quickly. This is also, they need to do more cardio. Their cardio is bad. It's like, no, they're carrying 260 pounds of muscle. That's that many more blood vessels. That's that much more blood, that much more substrate, oxygen. All this stuff the cardiovascular system's going to have to work harder to supply a bigger, more muscular body, and they're going to be worse at doing those activities. It's not that their cardio is bad; it's their physiology.
Final hot take question: what are the top health benefits of working out besides larger muscles?
Obviously, reduction in likelihood of cardiovascular disease, all-cause mortality, stronger joints and connective tissue, and especially for women, stronger bones. I think it's like 3 out of 5 women have osteoporosis. Okay. And you can take Fosamax and all these drugs with a gazillion side effects, or you can lift weights and you'll improve your bone density tremendously.
Damn.
And your mood psychologically. There have been upregulations in neurotransmitters associated with mood and happiness and feeling good. Huge upregulation in these neurotransmitters just from like one weight training session. It's like taking a psych drug. You'll feel good for days.
Yeah. Last question then is not really a hot take question, but we have a course that's going to be linked in the video right after we get done. So where can guys find out more about you and talk to me about that course at HIT University? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I've got a course that teaches you these principles because, you'd have to dig through a lot of these different books. So I have it all in one place. I'm going to teach you the physiology, the physiology behind this. I'm going to teach you about nutrition. I'm going to show you how to perform the exercises. I'm going to go more in depth of what we did just now on how to actually perform this and also how to teach it. So if you're a trainer and you want to offer service to your clients that will keep them coming, because as a trainer, client retention is huge. Most of these idiot trainers are hurting their clients by doing dumb exercises. Some of my clients have been with me for 6 years and they keep coming because if you don't hurt them, huge client retention. This is another good thing for trainers. But also if you'd like to follow me, my YouTube is Jay Vincent, Instagram at J__Vincent, 2 underscores.
We'll put links to these in the video after we get done here.
Yeah.
But it's been a great conversation, man. I look forward to going through a workout, the gym nearby.
Yeah.
And having you again, this year, 2021 at 21 Summit. You live here now. A lot of guys are moving to Florida, man.
Yeah, go. We'll all be nearby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thanks for your time today.
Yeah.
Guys, appreciate you tuning in live to the show. Sorry for the video difficulties earlier. I'll see you next week, probably about 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. Jay, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.